All right, so we're going to do a little demo, a keying demo in After Effects with a little rotoscoping as well. This might be a refresher for some of you, but this is the pipeline that we're going to use for removing things from green screen in here, and even non-green screen too, with rotoscoping, and I'll show you some examples. And these are the files that I'm working with today. So after downloading those files, I unzipped them. I'm going to go and load those files in to After Effects. Have any of you not used After Effects yet? So I need to know how, I'll just go basic. So File, Import, File, and then wherever you downloaded those files. Where's that QLite? There we go. We're just going to import the whole folder. Might give you a couple errors. You just click OK through those. Okay, just import. Oh my goodness. Not sure why it gave me so many errors, but that's fun. So these are just some video files that I'm going to be working with today. Obviously, this will apply to your own footages as well. So the first footage that I'm going to use is in the movies folder. If you didn't want to import everything, I'm going to use the one of this woman here, green screen 2.mp4. A lot of different ways to do the same thing in all softwares. I'm just going to grab onto it with my left click and drag it down into the little timeline area down here for those that need a refresh on After Effects. That's going to create what's called a composition. It's inside the composition here that I have all my layers. We're not going to have a ton of layers for this, but I could have a bunch of layers here if I needed to. So we'll be going through a couple of these files today, but we're going to start with her. So timeline in After Effects, you can scrub it just like any timeline you've ever used, perhaps in Premiere. After Effects really is Photoshop combined with Premiere. So if you feel good with both of those softwares, After Effects should not be that much of a stretch. Okay. So shot on green screen here. This is not a bad green screen. It's fine. Actually, if y'all had green screens like this, I'd be quite happy with that. This footage is actually MP4, which is funny because I just got done saying we shouldn't shoot MP4. But in the interest of file sizes, and just to show you some of the limitations, all of these are MP4s. So let me look at some of those limitations right off the bat. If I zoom really closely in, you can start to see how some of these colors are blocked together and how this could be problematic for the software to extract from the background. So like this, look at that. Yeah? Uh-oh. Happens only when you import? Yeah. Okay. Just open up After Effects then and we'll just do one video at a time. Let's must be something in the folder that is trying to go. Let me just import manually then. Okay, let's start over real quick. Is everybody having that issue? No? But everybody's not using the school computers. I'm just using my laptop because I can record this. So when these problems pop up, I don't know. So thanks for telling me. Okay, so instead of importing the whole folder, I'll just tell you which file we're working with. So you can, browse to where you unzip that. And in the movies folder, it's just greenscreen2.mp4. And then we can drag it down into the layers window. Problem solved, right? And there's something in there that was messing it up. I don't know. Okay. So we're going to use an effect called key light. Effects are over here on the right side in After Effects. If for whatever reason you don't have the effects menu, you can always open up the menus by going to Window up top and making them pop back up. We are searching for an effect called key light. Key light. So there's a lot of different ways to apply effects in After Effects. The straightforward one would be just to grab the effect with left click and drag it on top of your footage, or drag it on top of your layer. Either one. As soon as you drop that on there, you will see this little menu on the left pop up. Another thing to note, just like Premiere, After Effects likes to hide things behind little tabs. So notice at the top here I have a tab for effects controls and a tab for project. Make sure you're on the right tab. You can accidentally close these tabs down. You can always open them up from the window menu again. It's really easy to get lost temporarily. All right.
The name of the event is Key Light.
Key light. All right, so this is a pretty straightforward process. There's no 100% correct answer for the settings that you put in here. It's all what you're trying to do and the footage that you're working with. So we're all working with the same footage right now, I think, but if this is your own footage, your settings are going to be different. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to click on the little eyedropper where it says screen color. So next to that black swatch right there, you can get the little eyedropper, click. And this is the color that I'm telling After Effects to remove. So I could click on anywhere in the image. Where do you think I should click? Does it matter if I click up here? Does it matter if I click here? Does it matter if I click here? Where on the green backdrop would make the most sense? Does it matter?
On a brighter spot, I guess.
Why a brighter spot?
I guess on a spot that's less. Yeah, I guess like there's some wrinkles that cast like slightly darker.
Okay. I get what you're trying to say. So if I click on the lighter spots, it's going to base the key off the lighter spots of the green screen. If I click on the darker spots, it's going to base the key off the darker spots of the green screen. Really, that doesn't make so much of a difference because the wrinkles in the green screen are so equally distributed. The rule of thumb that I like to use is, remember what we talked about earlier, the only green screen that really matters is the part that's directly behind your subject, right? So if I scrub this footage and I look around, I know she shakes her head side to side a little bit, she shakes her hair. The corner up here, the corner in the top right, that green never gets touched by her hair. All the corners never get touched by her hair, right? So really the most important green screen is right here in the middle, where she crosses over. So that's where I'm going to put my eyedropper. Somewhere close to her hair, close-ish, it doesn't have to be crazy. I'm just going to drop it right here, next to her hair. And immediately, you should see transparency grid. If you don't see a transparency grid, notice that there is a little checkerboard button here, transparency grid button, that you can toggle on and off to see transparency grid or the default composition color, which is black. Black is the default background of your compositions. If the background is black like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that the background is not transparent, because it actually is. Look, if I start putting other layers behind her, you see it is black is transparent. It's just black's default color. Okay? So that actually looks okay on the transparency grid, right? I don't know, are you all happy with this? Are you feeling good? Well, let's not speak too soon. Almost never is keying a push button solution, a one click and we're done. If I click off the transparency grid and I look closely, look at all that noise when I play. See that? I actually can see the wrinkles of the background. I couldn't really tell when I had it on transparency grid, but I can certainly tell when it's on black. So it's good to toggle back and forth between those things. So how can we clean this up? Well, here's a workflow that I'm going to show you. So in the top of your view menu on Keylight, currently says view final result in that drop-down menu. Final result means it's showing us the final result of all of our settings. First thing I like to do after picking the screen color is going and clicking on status. Status is going to show me a very aggressive black, white, and gray representation of my video. The white pixels here are fully opaque. The black pixels here are fully transparent. And the gray pixels are somewhere in between. Ideally, my subject is going to be completely white here and my background is going to be completely black. That is not the case, as you can see right here, right? So we can start fixing that. The first settings that I like to play around with are the screen gain and the screen balance in Keylight. I will start to move up screen gain until it cleans up the background a decent amount. If you crank this setting, you will start to lose hair detail. So only do enough to start to clean up the background. And I really am just cleaning up the area around my subject. I'm not super worried about the stuff in the corners. Another thing, don't forget to play it. What looks good at one frame is just one snapshot in time. Just because it looks good at frame 76 doesn't mean it's going to look good anywhere else. Perhaps your subject moved and cast a shadow. Perhaps the assistant bumped the light or something like that. Just look through and see how it looks. Ideally, we go through this entire footage with one color key. Sometimes you have to cut the footage up. Do multiple keys. Sometimes, especially with full body stuff, you might need to mask the person's head separately from their midsection and their feet. Apply multiple keys to their body to get the best results. It's a lot more work. But ideally, sometimes we have to do that. Okay, so I'm okay with this for right now with my screen balance or screen gain. I'm gonna mess around with the balance, see what that does for me. It cleans up the interior. Yeah, I'll move that a little bit. So I'm at a 107 and a 35 for my gain and my balance. Next step, I will click on that view menu. Next step, I will click on that view menu and I will go to Screen Matte. Screen Matte is going to show me a high fidelity version of my matte or my screen. It doesn't show me which pixels are translucent or opaque as well, but it shows me much more of what the final matte is going to be. And you know, I think it looks, it's okay. I mean, it's mushy on the edges of the hair, but that's because it's compressed video. If I zoom in on this, well, let's pick when she shakes her hair. There we go. Let's zoom in on this. So here's the hair. Not very fine details. And again, this is just inherent with it being compressed footage and 8-bit color. We'll still be able to get an okay results, but just know that there are better alternatives with better hardware. Okay, so now I'm going to scrub through my footage, see if there's any other problems. And you know what? I actually think that it's pretty clean already. There are other settings that I would suggest playing around with. You almost always will have to. If you click on the drop down for screen matte, clipping the black, clipping the white, these will clean up the white and black areas. Shrink and grow, those will suck your matte in and out. Screen softness will feather the edge. Despotting on the black and white will help with any spots that pop up. If I adjust my clip black, you can see I lose all of that nice fine hair detail because I made it much more aggressive. If I roll out my clip white, a similar thing starts to happen. And also expose all the noise in the top right corner here. Play around with these settings. If I shrink or grow my matte, sucks it in, pushes it out. I'm feeling okay with this. And actually it seems like it's pretty good across the duration of the clip too. So my next step is I go to the view mode and I click on final result. Looks all right. I don't really have any noise in the corners anymore. If I do have noise still, I can always just add a little bit of clip black. But I don't see any anymore. Next thing that I suggest doing is changing the replace method from soft color to source. This is going to introduce some green screen spill. But that's all right. We can clean that up. A little bit of spill in the hair here, but we will clean that up. After you're happy with that, we can get another effect called the spill suppressor, advanced spill suppressor. So I just type in spill into the effects panel, and it's called advanced spill suppressor. This effect works really well at getting color casts out of your footage. Green screen fringing, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to grab onto that effect and drag it onto my clip. And I like to put this on ultra for method instead of standard. But really it depends on what your footage is. It's very subtle. I don't know if you can tell on the projector. Clicking on and off. You can also adjust the tolerance. Just a little bit. So, it's these two effects that will get you most of the way there usually. Now if we were bringing this into Unreal, we could render this out as a PNG sequence or a EXR sequence, which we haven't gotten into yet. Either of those will hold an alpha channel, and then we can use that process that we used last class to bring the video into Unreal, keyed out. It's exactly what we did last time, it's just now we're also making the video itself. So because she is keyed out now, I can put whatever behind her. And another thing I should note with compositing, removing things from green screen, you should composite against the backgrounds that you're going to play. You should key against the background that you're going to composite it into. It should not be your goal to make your color key look good on any background. Like, why? You're only ever going to put it on one background. Why does it have to look good on red when you're putting it on some other backgrounds, like a brick wall or something like that? The tricks and settings that you use to make it look good on one background can be different than what you're going to put it on another background. So if you already have your background finished, or you know what you're going to put composited into, bring that background into After Effects, look at it. Make your settings and adjustments based on that background. This looks okay on red. Maybe it doesn't look good on a different color. If it looks good on white and black and gray, it's pretty much going to look good on anything. I guess what I'm saying is just don't stress out. If you know it's going to be on a lighter color background and it doesn't look good on a darker color background, who cares? You're not putting it on a darker color background, right? Don't freak out about that. Also, putting it on a solid color background like I just did here, a lot more challenging to make it look good than if the background was more busy. A busier background, or even a moving background, you'll be able to hide your mistakes a lot more. People won't notice. And remember, in visual effects, if you can't see it, and the audience doesn't see it, and you've won. That's the goal. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be good enough that nobody notices the difference. So now I could go back to my project window, I go to import again, and import whatever sort of background you want. I just have some other video clips here. Some of these are kind of weird. I don't know, but we're going to put her on top of a golf course because that's just the video I have. Seems like I'm cheating because the golf course is green. Questions about that? Pretty straightforward, right? So that's an easy one. King half body close-ups with decent green screen behind it. Very easy to do. She also has dark colored hair. Lighter colored hairs, much more difficult. The yellows in blonde hair, they can blend into the green screen. The darker colored hairs, it's more high contrast. It sticks out from the green screen a little bit better. So always shoot people with dark colored hair, right? Okay, let's do a different one. I'm going to import, and I'm going to go with the one with this guy with a little green patch on his shirt. This is going to introduce a different problem for us. I'm going to create a composition from this one, so I can right-click on the footage. If you right-click on the footage and then go to New Comp from Selection, it will make a new composition from that, sort of like a new Photoshop file, or in terms of Premiere, a new sequencer, or a new sequence. So first things first, let's just key this guy out how we did before. Let's go ahead and do it real quick. We don't need to do it together. So screen color, look at status. It's a little messy here. I'm going to crank up my screen gain a little bit. Mess around with the balance. Balance doesn't really help me very much. Clip my blacks a little bit. Take down my whites a little bit. Go back to screen matte. Scrub the footage a little bit. Take a look at it. Notice that sometimes the guy is so pale that his skin is catching some green screen right here. So it's actually putting a hole in his eyeball a little bit. So if I adjust my clip white, I can clean that up a little bit. Actually, his bald head is catching some green light too. So it's these sorts of problems that you need to start to make decisions about. Can I do this just with key light, or do I need to do some manual masking? In this case, I think this is straightforward enough for us to just key it. Now for the square on his shirt, for right now, don't worry about this at all. This footage, for this example, this is an example of what happens if somebody has a piece of clothing on that has something on it that's greenish. So you're trying to remove the green screen background, but this person decided to wear a t-shirt with a giant frog on the front of it or something like that. Well, for this case, with this guy's shirt, the good thing about this is that he never turns to the side where that little green patch on his shirt actually intersects with the background. It's surrounded by white, so this is going to be really easy for us to fix. If he turns to the side and the green patch on his shirt was against the green background, that's where it gets a little bit more tricky, and we have to do things manually. But for right now, this is okay. So I'm going to finish this off. Screen matte, go to final results, soft colored source. A lot of green screen spill on his face and stuff, so I'm going to use the advanced spill suppressor. Ultra. Clean that up. Good. Good. Edges of his shirt are a little, oops, what did I do? Edges of his shirt are a little messy. A lot of this black fringe right here is a result of it being compressed video footage, MP4. So maybe I'll use the shrink grow option. You have to be careful with that. Maybe I'll shrink and grow it by 1.5. But remember, what looks good on his shirt maybe doesn't look good on the top of his head. Because you're shrinking and growing the whole mat, you're not doing it just in that area. Okay. So what if I want to bring back the little green on his shirt? This is where it gets fun, because this is the sort of stuff that you run into all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the original footage in my project window inside mask.mp4, and I'm going to drag this into my layer panel. So I essentially covered it up, right? Inside mask.mp4 1 and 2. I'm going to name these, right click on it and name it FG underscore and BG underscore for background. Just so I can keep track. There's only 2 of them, so there's not much to keep track of, but believe me, you can end up with lots of different pieces. So if I click off the little eyeball on the top foreground layer, you know, I see my key and all that stuff. I don't want to key the foreground layer. All I'm going to need to do is mask it. And again, because this is right in the middle of his shirt, this is going to be super simple. So if I click on the foreground layer, and I go up to the top here, click on the pen tool, I can start laying down pen tool points around his shirt. And what I end up with is I end up with just the shirt with the green patch on it, like this. And then I end up with the background keyed out with the hole in his shirt. Put those 2 things together, and our job is done. Assuming I can move this and he doesn't go outside of it. Questions about that? Anybody miss a step? So if that green pocket moved around a lot more, we would have to animate the mask, which is something that we can easily do. It's actually one of the more tedious things that we can do in After Effects. Remember we watched that guy's reel of rotoscoping? We start to get into real tedious things in that case. Really time-consuming process to do. Now, I don't have footage of the green where it moves around a lot right now, but I will show you a little mask demo. This will be a little funny. So I'm going to mask out just his lips because he moves his head around a little bit. So I'm going to put another copy of the original footage on top. I just thought of this as a demo. With the time remaining, we're not going to go into rotoscoping till next class. So I'm just freestyling right now. So I want to mask out his lips. So I put a new copy of the lips on there. And then I'm going to get the pen tool again. And I'm going to, this is a not super precise job here in the interest of time. But I'm just going to mask out his lips. Problem is, his lips move. He moves his head. But my mask stays still, right? My mask is not moving. The mask doesn't know where it's supposed to go. So what I have to do is I have to animate this mask. If I click on the drop down for these layers, all these layers have a little drop down menu. This little icon right here. A little greater than sign. If you click on that, you get other features that are inherent with the layer. This layer has a mask on it, so it has a section for masks. How many masks can you have in a layer? As many as you want. This only has one right now, though. It's an additive mask. And I have the little stopwatch icon here. Remember the stopwatch from Unreal starts recording keyframes, similar to the stopwatch in Premiere or any other software that has keyframe animation. I'm going to click the stopwatch on mask path and start recording and moving around this mask. So I'm going to do that, scrub a little bit, say, okay, the mask moves over here. This is not an exact science in this point, just for demo purposes. I like to try to find where the motion comes to a standstill at. He moves down here. Okay, this is where he's going to end up. I'm going to grab onto this and move it down here. So now the mask is starting to follow his lips around. Is it perfect? No, I would have to spend a lot more time attempting to do that. But for this demo, I think it's fine. So you just find a new time and then adjust where the mask should be. Very similar to doing keyframes in Unreal. Keyframe animation is in tons and tons of softwares. So this is a silly example. I'm just going to do something silly with his lips, like just change the color of the layer. I don't even actually have his lips very well selected. It's more like just his face area. So the mask's starting to follow his lips around. There are trackers that you can use to do this automatically, but this is how we would do it manually. There's also some other settings down here. Feathering, opacity, expansion. Maybe I'll feather this a little bit. And I don't know, it would be some silly. We can, I don't know, maybe get hue and saturation. Yeah, I just want to give him a little bit more lusciously red lips. So if I feather it too much, then it disappears. If I feather it not enough, I start to see the edge. So maybe I could start to play around with the expansion as well. Or you could just do more tighter masking. It actually turned out okay. You do a little bit better job. But see, I have saturated his lips now. The mask could be better, but it's okay for this demo. And I'm just clicking on and off that layer where I saturated his lips. So this example of masking and animating the mask, if he turned his body a lot, we would have to do this similar sort of a thing, minus human saturation, to the little green square on his shirt. If he turned to the edge of the green screen where the patch is intersecting, you'd have to be really precise with where that is, because the software is probably going to say it's all one piece. Animating masks in After Effects and Nuke and Fusion and any VFX software is something that you really need to get familiar with and good with, because that will allow you to have really detailed, nuanced control over coloring certain areas, removing elements from the background, all sorts of stuff like that. Maybe in a future class, if we have time, I'll show you how to do something like this in Resolve. Resolve is so much more powerful. I could basically just select the color of his lips, and that will auto mask out anything else and automatically track them and allow us to do really fine detailed control really quickly. After Effects is a little bit slower. Huh. It's all right. So for our cases with Unreal, we're not really putting backgrounds behind the people. We're rendering them out. So if I wanted to render them out, there's a couple different ways that you can render out from After Effects. If you go to Composition, you could add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue, or you could add to Render Queue. I'm going to add to Render Queue. Oops. If you click on Output Module, where it says Lossless currently, yours might say something different. Here you can pick the formats. I do PNGs or OpenEXRs. OpenEXRs are really great. We haven't really talked about them yet, but they'll do the same thing. The setup is the same. They'll just work. It's an image sequence. PNGs. You want to do channels RGB plus alpha. If you don't do RGB plus alpha, you will just get it put on black. Click OK. Choose where you want to save this to. Put this in a new folder. Click the render button over on the right. Here it's starting to spit out my PNGs. So now I could import this into Unreal, just like we did last time. So this is how you get custom green screen footage into Unreal. Shoot it, key it out, bring it into Unreal. Set it up with the media track like we did last week with Sequencer. Most of you posted that to the assignment. It seemed to make sense. Remember, because these images are going to have transparent backgrounds, that you need to go into the material and drag from the node to opacity and set it as translucent. Otherwise, it's not going to have a transparent background.